Last minute adjustments. Excuse me while I button up. Ow, ow, oh, wow, wow.
We're on.
We are live. Hopefully Facebook doesn't get sassy tonight. You never know. You never know with Facebook if she's going to be your friend.
Oh, look, Christina's on.
See, look.
What
See,
was that?
it's what they're starting to do now when
It's
people
like
join.
pop-ups.
It's like pop-up faces.
Oh, no. Like,
It doesn't do it all the time,
like
though.
that would distract me.
It's like, you're like, what? And it only does it once, and then it'll do it in like 10 minutes, and then it never does it again. So what? Swipe left to see your... I'm going to try something real quick. Oh!
Look at that. That's weird.
I don't know about all that. All right.
Okay.
Well, hi, everyone. If you're here, give a heart and a holler. I just came up with that, by the way. That's good.
Very good.
That's good, a heart and a
Very
holler. So we're here in Austin. It's actually starting to get dark now. Did you notice that?
All of a sudden.
Oh, crap. So we're here in our hotel, my hotel room, not Sherry's. I'm staying by myself because I'm a grown man. But it is time for not working. See, Facebook is being crazy.
She's starting.
No, it messes everything up
Oh, look
because
at
it'll start off crazy and then it will go back and fix itself.
Okay.
But if it's not working, shut it down and come back.
Yeah.
Facebook is glitchy. We
You
don't.
know what?
Whatever.
The other night I did a live stream,
Uh-huh.
and for the first 3 minutes, I had this weird filter over me. It looked like an Instagram filter over me the entire time. and it shut off.
Sometimes
something's not.
Sometimes
working.
I post photos on Facebook or Instagram and
Yeah.
post them in black and white for no reason whatsoever. It doesn't make any sense.
Freaking us alive.
So, okay, it's our monthly Q&A here with me and Shari Creso, sponsored by the lovely folks over at Even Flow Feeding. And we're actually here in Austin for MommyCon. So we're going to do breastfeeding and pumping live tomorrow at the show around
Yes.
12:30. I think, see, more people did. See?
I
It's
see.
so weird.
I've never seen that before. Is that like an iPhone thing?
It's an iPhone thing.
Could be.
So we're just here. We have some questions we're going to answer. Make sure you give a heart and you comment because that's how you enter to win a pump. And that's wonderful. A free pump is a good thing. So you all know me. Most of you do know Shari by now. And I'm sorry Facebook is being difficult, and that's why I got a beer.
Yeah, I wonder.
Shari,
Yeah, hi.
why don't you introduce yourself to the people who may not be familiar with you?
Okay. Hi, everyone. So, I'm Sherry Creso, and I am Jamie's friend, and also work with Even Flow Feeding, and I am a registered nurse, and I'm also a nurse midwife, and I'm also an international board certified lactation consultant. I've been working with moms for over 25 years, and in all capacities of prenatal care and pregnancy and birth. I've done over 600 deliveries when I had my practice, and now I really specialize in education. So when people ask me what I do now, I teach. Because really that's what this is. It's all about really being able to take all the experience I've had over the years in all those areas and work with all of you online to teach you as much as I can, and that's what we're going to do tonight, is answer these questions. So
It's
can,
kind of like when I have to explain to people what I do for a living. I'm like,
it's the weirdest conversation.
I
Right?
work in social media, and I'm a writer, speaker.
Uh-huh.
Something I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, I had the
Just Jamie.
weirdest conversations about like what is it that you do, and then people
Yeah.
want to know, and so I'm a teacher.
no, yep.
No, I am.
So every month we do these Q&As. We collect your questions off of the Book of Face when you leave them for us, and then we answer them. And some questions we take live. If Facebook is being difficult, however, we may not get any live questions. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes down. So let me get your Android here.
Do you know how to use my phone?
It's like a haunted house. Professional baby guy badass. That works. All right. All right.
We had a very long day, by the way. We just
very
woke
long
up
day.
again.
We had we took a nap.
We went to sleep.
We ran all over Austin. We had to go to Bangers and eat my sausages because I love Bangers.
Really good.
And then we walked around and we got too hot because I did not pack any shorts. I don't know what I was thinking. I did not. I was in I was in sandals. Not good. So then we went and had margaritas, and then we came back to the hotel and took a nap.
Margaritas all afternoon, and then
It's
sleep.
Friday. Treat yourself.
Yeah,
All right. So, oh come on now, go back. No.
See, I told you.
Listen. Okay. So, Sydney has a question. I haven't breastfed in almost 2 weeks. Can my breast still produce milk?
So the answer to that's what's making the color different. Okay, so she's wondering if she can still produce milk. Usually, so here's the deal. However much you feed, or when you express your milk, that's how much you're going to make. So if you stop feeding, you're definitely going to decrease your supply, whether you're stop feeding, you stop pumping. But I'm assuming what she's asking is if she stopped feeding, can she go back to creating milk again? And usually within 2 weeks, you're going to have a very good chance of relactation. That's the word for it, is relactation. The longer you wait to create more milk or to go back to expressing milk, the harder it's going to be. 2 weeks is usually not a long time, and for those of you who've ever breastfed and then weaned, you'll see that you can still probably hand express or get milk out for sometimes months after you're done feeding. So yes, the answer to the question is, after 2 weeks, can you go back to expressing or producing milk? The answer is yes. However, it's going to require, if you want to get back to a point where you're exclusively breastfeeding again, you're really going to need to be doing this around the clock, whether it's pumping, latching the baby, stimulating the breast. At the beginning, you're going to need to, you're going to see that there's very little, but if you continue to keep draining the breast frequent and often, like every 2 hours at a minimum, your body will start to kick in again, and your prolactin levels will start to go up again, and you will start to reproduce milk. So 2 weeks, yes, there's definitely, this happens all the time, because, moms, struggle in the beginning.
Yeah.
Sometimes they supplement, sometimes unnecessarily. They're told to do something that maybe they didn't need to do, or maybe they needed to for whatever reason right after the baby was born, and then inadvertently they'll decrease their supply by supplementation. They'll stop breastfeeding thinking that they couldn't do it, and then there's sort of like this moment that comes and says, I really wanted to breastfeed. I really wanted to, but I haven't done it in a couple weeks. Is it possible to go back? And the answer to the question is yes, it's possible, but you need help. So to do it on your own is not easy. Usually you want to be able to see a lactation consultant to work with you on relactation. Relactation's like a big deal because you can do it, and not only can you do that, adopted moms can
And
breastfeed
they can
too.
induce it.
You can, so there's, you can induce milk, you can relactate. The body's really amazing on how it responds.
Yeah. Sensible. If you're here, please heart this, because this broadcast is feeling very, it's just weird.
It's strange,
Bless.
right?
Bless. It's just Facebook being weird, and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We can just blame Facebook.
Live feed
Not working. Yeah.
Does that, are you saying that you can't see the stream? Like, can you hear us?
They can hear it, or some people can hear it, some people can't see it, some
so
just
weird.
get nothing.
Yeah.
But then some people have it completely.
All right.
Covfefe. So
There you go.
Andrea has a question. Andrea, my son breastfeeds for different amounts of times, sometimes 30 minutes over an hour. Am I doing something wrong? He's 2 months old, and they always ask me if he's on for 15 minutes, and I'm like, nope, way more than that. Is my supply low?
Okay. Yeah, that seems to be like the question, and this just drives me crazy because the question of like, is your baby nursing for 15 minutes on each side or 20 minutes on each side? As if somehow that time frame is going to tell you how much the baby's eating. It's a really good way to chart for someone to write down in a medical record, something to quantify how much the baby's eating, but the length of time, time doesn't matter. And I always encourage people not to look at the clock. That being said, some feedings are going to take longer, some feedings are going to go shorter. You're not going to look at it either way. The baby being on for 5 minutes or the baby being on for 30 minutes is really not an indication of whether you have enough milk or not. The baby will suck to eat, and sometimes they'll suck just to suck. There's a lot of non-nutritive sucking that goes on at the breast that's still really important, and the baby just likes to linger there. And young babies, a 2-month-old, sometimes those feedings do take longer, especially like you'll see sometimes late in the afternoon or early evening where they're just going back to the breast over and over and over again, because the supply is a little bit lower, but the fat content's a little bit higher. So those longer or more cluster-like feedings don't indicate that you don't have enough. It could just be that the baby is trying to stimulate more milk. I would say that the best way to, let's answer this with, how do you know the baby's getting enough? Because if it's not time, and I always used to use this analogy, you know, like there is, it's not actually an analogy, but if your breast, we've been breastfeeding longer than there's been clocks. Okay, if needing to quantify this with a clock was somehow going to tell you how much there is, we would have had a problem, and that's not what we've done all these thousands and thousands of years. So you can look at your baby, you can tell from your baby, from the feeding, by feeling your breast. Before and after the feeding, the breast will feel softer. The breast will feel fuller in the beginning. The breast will feel softer after the feeding's over. You can hear the baby swallowing, and that's actually how you're going to be able to tell that the baby is drinking and when the baby stops drinking. And that's one indication that the baby's getting milk. The other indication would be wet diapers, and that's probably the best way to quantify how much the baby's getting, is to look at how much output your baby has. Your baby should be peeing like 6 to 8 wet diapers in a 24-hour period is a minimum, all right? And that's going to tell you the baby's hydrated.
I don't live under people, so hearing people just stomp, 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 it's like a T-Rex upstairs.
I feel distracted looking at Christina. I'm sorry.
Can you actually, Christina from Evenflow is here, and she's running Evenflow social media. Can you comment under this, just because the feed is being wonky? Can you comment if the feed is not working? Reload the app, and also feel free to watch this when the live stream is done.
Yeah.
Bless your heart.
I got it.
You gotta do listen, you gotta do what you gotta do.
One more thing I want to say about that. If your baby is constantly eating, not sleeping, crying in between feedings, and looking like they're hungry, okay, because I really want to talk about that. There could be a supply issue if it feels like the baby just never calms. If the baby is not satisfied after the feedings ever, if the baby keeps trying to go back to the breast to eat, those kind of cluster feedings where the baby never feels satisfied could be an indication of a low supply. So you really need to take it like on a case by case, and don't assume that the baby's fine just because they're cluster feeding, and don't assume that there's something wrong with your supply just because they keep going back to the breast. Look for other signs. I had a lady, where were we? We were in New York, right? Last week?
It was last weekend? Yes, it was. Right? Yes, it was last weekend.
Okay. So we were at the New York Baby Show. Somebody had come up to me, and it was after our Q&A, and she was talking about how the baby had dropped down on the growth chart, and her pediatrician wanted her to start supplementing, and the baby was just small, like a 6-month-old, and just not a huge baby. Even though the baby was gaining weight slowly, the baby was just not up to the weight that the pediatrician wanted to see. And I literally looked at this baby, who was a tiny little thing, and the baby had fat rolls. on her legs, fat rolls on her arms. The baby had a double chin. She was just small.
Yeah.
But she had all this subcutaneous fat. And mom was this little petite thing too. And I looked at the mom, and I just said, does your baby look good to you? Like, how do you feel looking at your baby? How do you feel when you look at those chunky legs right there? Do you feel like your baby is not growing enough? And she said, no, I actually feel like the baby's okay.
Does the baby look malnourished?
Right. And this is where, like, in your own intuition, instincts about your child. Some babies are just smaller, and so to just put everyone on some growth chart, to put all babies on some growth chart and say they're supposed to weigh 16 pounds at 6 months, they're supposed to weigh 15 pounds, it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous thing. So you got to look a little closer at
I've never understood that either.
Yeah, like all different things. You know, you can tell. And some babies are lean, but they still have the fat on them. And so there's a lot more that goes into it.
Yeah. Thank you for leaving that.
Yeah.
Here's one you'll really like.
Oh, no.
Are you ready?
I know you, so I know this is... Don't do it to me.
Why not? I was wondering if you had any suggestions for a baby that doesn't bite. The biting questions are hard because there is no answer. Any suggestions for a baby that pinches when he's feeding? He's 7 months old and he's pinching my underarms, my breast, my neck, and my belly. Necklace doesn't work, and blankets and burp cloths and clothes covering doesn't stop it. I tell him to stop and say ouch loudly, and he will stop for a bit. Any suggestions? I would also like to say, I'm from Arkansas, so I need to tell you a quick story. I did not realize until I got to college it was pronounced pinch.
Pinch.
Because we said pinch.
Oh, pinch?
Stop pinching me. And it's Arkansas language. Pinch. You pinch someone.
That's really
it's
funny.
Pinch.
Yes, it is pinch.
It's not P-E-E-N-C-H. Pinch. So I went to college and I was like, what'd you pinch me for? And they're like, what? I was
What'd
like,
you just say?
pinched me. And they were like, it is pinch.
Oh, I have words like that too. Where I'm like, I have no idea that I have that New Jersey accent until people start saying, what did you just say? Like, you know what when I do? Like, how do you say, you know, when you pull something like
a drawer.
Yeah, I say draw. And I shouldn't be saying draw. It's not draw.
No, it's not. It's
draw is like to draw, right? I say draw. Drawer.
Yeah.
Drawer. Sounds so weird. Okay.
How do you stop
pinching?
Pinching.
Okay. How do you stop pinching? No pinching.
No pinching.
So yeah, my kids used to do this to me too, and sometimes they like to actually go after the other nipple too.
They would nurse on one and pinch the other.
Oh yeah,
that's delightful.
It was lots of fun.
Oh man.
Yes, probably they're experiencing the same thing. It's 7-month-olds. They're very curious. One of the ways that you can kind of like getting their arm out, like getting it underneath you so that you can kind of capture their bottom arm a little bit better, may be easier to get that pinching to stop. Basically, what I would say is hold their hand. I used to hold my daughter's hand because if I let go of her hand, especially that top hand, so I'd be nursing, and then the other hand would grab my skin or my other boob, and she'd pinch my neck, pinch my skin. So I would hold her hand and just kind of play with her hand. That helped with the one arm. The other thing that I would do is make sure their fingernails are cut nice and short, because that's really gonna hurt when they have those like really sharp little nails and they dig into your skin. Baby nails are really, really hard. So just make sure the nails are cut short. As far as see, like twiddlers and pinchers, that's what they do. They do. Giving them something to hold and play. Sometimes what I would say is that the necklaces do work, except that they get bored. Kids get bored with what they've used for a while, so I would just have a few things handy. They like novelty, so go from the necklace to a toy to other things. If you keep using the same thing, they're kind of like not interested after a while. Baby Freddy Krueger over here, nails grow like, well,
Listen, 1, 2 babies coming for you. just came up with that one.
Those nails.
Cheers. So
really
proud.
Hard. Hi, Lauren.
Did you finish answering up and reading your phone?
I finished.
Okay. This is a good one. Jess has a question. Any idea where thrush comes from? I feel like my breast had it first and I'm having a hard time getting rid of mine. Baby is already cleared up.
Good question.
So let's talk about thrush. What is thrush?
So thrush is actually comes from candida, which is like a yeast infection. So many of you know what that is when you have a vaginal yeast infection. That can actually grow on the nipples, in the breast, in the baby's mouth. And so the overgrowth of yeast is thrush, and you'll see that in the baby's mouth, where sometimes you can see it as like a white patches inside the baby's mouth. Sometimes you'll just see, oh, that's good.
Yeah, we needed some more light. It's getting dark.
Sometimes you'll have that on your breast and you won't see anything in the baby's mouth, but they can have different kinds of reactions where they're difficulty feeding. They can have diaper rash, which can actually be caused by thrush. But when it's happening on your breast, it feels very painful. Usually you'll have, your nipples will turn a bright red, like color. The pain is intense, where it looks, it hurts more than what it should look, than what it looks like. You don't usually have any cracking or bleeding, so it's not typically from a poor latch or not positioning right. It's from this infection. And then you can also have it throughout the breast, where you'll have these sharp shooting pains that can go through the breast, and it usually doesn't even happen during the feeding. It's usually in between feedings where you have these sharp pains in the breast. Thrush grows because of a couple different things, but the main reason that I see thrush with moms is from antibiotic use. So when you have, so candida is something that we all carry in our body naturally, you know, in our vaginas, in our intestinal tracts, in our, everywhere, you know, it's in the gut, we carry yeast. It's part of our normal flora, so to speak, of the body. Then what happens is the bacteria, the good bacteria in your body, eats the yeast. So it keeps it in check and it keeps it from overgrowing. What happens when you take antibiotics is that not only do you kill the harmful bacteria, whatever is causing you to be ill, the reason you're taking them in the first place, that bacteria, the antibiotics can also kill the good bacteria. And when the good bacteria is suppressed, yeast overgrows. Okay, so that's how you don't catch yeast. Okay, you already have yeast. Yeast overgrows in the absence of the good bacteria. It also grows in the presence of too much sugar. So sugar feeds the yeast. So when you have like this horrible cocktail of like antibiotics and sugar, you can have an overgrowth of yeast. And milk is also filled with sugar too. And so you can also, it can cause that to grow as well. Lots of times you take antibiotics in labor for different reasons, whether it's maybe you had ruptured membranes for a long time, moms are given IV antibiotics. Sometimes you're group B strep positive during your pregnancy and you're treated during your labor with IV antibiotics, or you've had a C-section. If you had a C-section, you're going to get antibiotics during the surgery as a preventative. So lots of moms are really at risk for having thrush, or you had mastitis. This is a big cause of it. Okay, so you wind up with mastitis, you go on antibiotics to treat the breast infection, and then you have a secondary infection with the overgrowth of yeast. And sometimes it's really hard to treat. I just did a whole live stream a couple weeks ago. It's really, really good. It's still up, and it's not going to be up for long because part of my new program actually, it's a whole program, a whole live stream on mastitis, plug ducts, and yeast infections. And it was very, very good. It was like an hour and a half long. We talked all about different treatments for yeast. But usually you can use topicals to treat the yeast if it hasn't gone completely into the breast. At the point where you really do have those shooting pains, most people will need diflucan, which is a oral antifungal.
Yeah.
And it's not, diflucan is the same drug that we give to women for vaginal yeast infections, but we give it in a one-time dose, so you get one pill for vaginal yeast. And so when you go to your OBGYN, you say, okay, I need diflucan for yeast. They're used to giving it as one pill. When you're taking it for your breast, you need at least a 14-day course of
kind
diflucan.
of like a Z-pack.
Yeah, kind of.
Kind of like a Z-pack.
So 14 days is like a minimum.
I used to live on Z-Packs in college.
Stephanie watched that live one. Yeah, So you need at least 14 days if you're going to take that. And the yeast lately has been very resistant. So some people need not only 14 days, some people could take it up to a whole month and then even need more than that. So it's been really, one of the reasons why I really encourage you to decrease your sugar intake, to take good probiotics, okay? Because that would really help. Everybody should be taking probiotics to make sure that you're keeping your good bacteria levels high, to keep your gut healthy, and to keep that overgrowth of yeast down. And also try to avoid unnecessary antibiotics. Sometimes you can't, it's in labor or whatever, but that was the whole stream, was talking about mastitis, and not all mastitis needs antibiotic treatment. And we really, as a society, there's so much overuse of antibiotics, and it's not benign. It causes secondary problems, and on top of that, it causes a lot of resistance, which we're seeing now for everything. So, it's definitely an important thing, and it's really painful. I had it with both the kids.
You had mastitis with both kids or
No,
thrush?
I had thrush.
Okay.
I had yeast, and it was I had antibiotics in labor with my first, from having ruptured membranes for a long time with Jade, with my oldest. And so I had some IV antibiotics and wound up with thrush, and it took a month of of diflucan to finally clear it up. But it's really, really painful.
Oh.
It's really painful. And the baby does need to be treated. And at the same time, when you're doing that, like if you're pumping any milk, this always comes up. Like if I had thrush.
Will it go into the breast milk?
Yeah, it does. So
it does?
So unlike mastitis, like when you have mastitis, the breast milk is not infected.
Yeah.
Like you need to feed, the milk is fine, it's not in the milk. But when you have thrush, that milk, if you pumped any milk while you're being treated and you stored that, you don't want to go giving it to the baby later. You want to get rid of it, because you can actually reinfect the baby again, which then starts the whole thing again.
But if the baby's getting the breast milk directly from it,
no, the baby can be nursing while you have thrush, because you're treating the baby at the same time as you're treating yourself.
Okay.
So you're either treating the baby inside of their mouth while you're treating the nipples, or you're taking diflucan, which is going through your milk. Baby is getting diflucan through the milk, which you want them to get. But if you store that milk, that had yeast, and then a month later, when you're all cured and the baby's all cured, you can start it all up again.
Okay.
So you really have to get rid of that milk, unfortunately. So if you have yeast, I wouldn't start storing a lot of milk, because that milk's going to be something you don't want to give the baby later. Everything needs to be sterilized, which usually we don't talk about doing that.
Yeah.
With yeast, it's just hard. It'll grow. So like any pacifiers, nipples on bottles, your bras and your pads and all those things need to be washed every day. Everything needs to be really. It's an intense thing.
It's like when I had pink eye a few years back.
Yeah,
I caught the pink eye from the kids, and it was like wash everything in hot water. I washed my pillows and everything every day, and all I did was breast milk and hot rags, and it cleared it right.
Breast milk's the best thing for pink eye.
Yeah. Here's an interesting question for you, Amber. Is there any benefit to pumping before birth?
Well, not for your milk, but it can start labor. So depends on why you're asking the question. I think I would assume that you're asking that question to maybe help start your milk supply. Maybe there's some concern over having enough milk at the point of the baby's birth, which it doesn't work like that. So pumping beforehand, and you could see a little colostrum come out, but really it's not going to encourage your milk to come in any faster or greater after the baby's born. The way that your milk comes in, your colostrum starts during the pregnancy, and so you can see a little bit of leaking. Some people do, some people don't. It doesn't matter. You're still going to have colostrum once the baby's born. And then what happens is, at the moment of birth, the placenta delivers, and your placenta is creating a lot of hormones. That's where you actually grow an entire organ. Your placenta is an organ that you grow during pregnancy. It's producing hormones. It's exchanging oxygen and nutrients and all these things, and then it delivers and you get rid of it, which is, it's an amazing, I mean, as a midwife, I'm amazed by this. I love placentas.
The first time I saw a placenta was when
placentas.
my sister Olivia was born.
It's the most amazing
and
thing, right?
That placenta, it was so much different than what I thought it would look like.
Oh yeah. It's a cool
It was
thing.
nuts.
It's a cool thing. So that placenta is an organ that has a lot of function, and it's what keeps your baby alive to the point of birth. When it comes out, what happens is all those hormones that it's producing to keep the pregnancy going leave with the placenta, and that drop in hormones, like a sudden drop in those certain hormones, cause an increase in other hormones like prolactin to rise quickly. And within a few days, that's what actually causes that secondary stage of lactation, which your milk comes in. So regardless of whether you pump or, whatever it is, that delivery of the placenta is going to cause your milk to come in a few days later. So pumping during pregnancy is not going to help with your milk. That being said, nipple stimulation does cause uterine contractions. So the same way that you stimulate the nipple to produce oxytocin, which then causes the uterus to contract, okay? It also contracts the milk ducts, which makes the milk let down. So oxytocin has that same effect on both the uterus and on the milk ducts in the breast. So when you use nipple stimulation, you can actually, you can cause contractions. If it's too early in the pregnancy, it's usually not going to happen anyway. Your uterus doesn't really become sensitive to oxytocin till a certain point.
But I mean, there's just no point in pumping before you give birth anyway. There's no point.
There's no point unless you're overdue and you want to try to stimulate contractions. It can help, but I wouldn't.
There's no point.
No point.
Real quick, I'm going to try something right now. Somebody said they had to bring up a different browser for the video to work. Great. Where is everyone from? Leave the city and the state where you're currently watching. I want to see what the lag is on here.
It's really low.
It's real low. Facebook is just being so weird lately.
I have nothing. It happened to me the other day too. It's
nuts.
So why don't we restart?
We had somebody. Okay, we
tell them to come back on.
We're gonna log off here really quick, and we're gonna come right back on. Somebody's from Austin, Texas. Hi, neighbor. And we're gonna log back on. And start this over. We'll do another half hour, like whatever, and we'll see if that helps. Facebook is being...
You could even see the coloration.
Facebook is being covfefe. We'll be right back.